Welcome into Outkick the Show, boys and girls. I hope you guys are having fantastic Fridays wherever across the country or the world you may be. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader. I appreciate all of you sharing the show. It's been one of our biggest weeks ever, and you guys are a big reason why. We got a lot to get to today. I'm going to dive right into it. I know it's Friday, and you guys are trying to pretend that you're still at work, you're trying to pretend that you're actually doing things, and I'm going to get in and out of here fast. We don't have a show today on television, so no lock it in. A lot of times we don't have Friday editions, but when there's a lot of news, we do. I'm going to give you my final four picks. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers' dysfunction. Vanderbilt University has hired Jerry Stackhouse. What do we think about it? Craig Carton has been sentenced to jail for multiple years. Pretty crazy story there. And I am turning 40 tomorrow. A little bit of life lessons. I'm probably going to write something at Outkick. But I appreciate all of you who have been supportive of me all these years. So, tomorrow, the Final Four is going on. What are the gambling picks? I'm going to give it to you straight. I love these picks. I am on Vanderbilt. I wish. I am on Auburn, plus 5.5. Auburn plus 5.5 against Virginia. I've been giving that pick out all week, and I am on the under in Michigan State, Texas Tech. All right, my two favorite picks. Listen closely: Auburn plus 5.5. The under 133 is the most recent number I have seen. My final four picks for tomorrow. Again, going Auburn plus 5.5 against UVA, the under on Texas Tech and Michigan State. Go jump on those right now. All right. In addition to that going on, we have got a blockbuster story that Tyler Dunne put out from Bleacher Report about Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson and the status and situation of the Green Bay Packers and the dysfunctional dumpster fire that exists in Green Bay. If you haven't read this story, I tweeted out the link. You need to read it. My biggest takeaway in general is that Aaron Rodgers is insanely insecure, and he has a temperament that would make me crazily nervous about having committed as much money to him as the Packers committed to him. They gave him over $200 million, made him the highest paid player in the history of the NFL at the age of 35. If you read all the details in this story, they are outlandish and wild, including the fact that Aaron Rodgers won't talk to Greg Jennings because he said hi to Brett Favre on the field. He refuses to even interact with him. This despite the fact that Greg Jennings had him over for Thanksgiving dinner and all sorts of other interaction between the two. This is wild to me. Really antisocial behavior from Aaron Rodgers. It says that he would change the plays on the field during the game against opponents, and then also that he would tell the wide receivers to run the routes he told them to, as opposed to the way that they were told to run the routes. This, to me, makes it very hard to believe that Aaron Rodgers is a guy that you can build a franchise around going forward, or more importantly, that things are going to work out very well with a young head coach in Matt LaFleur coming into Green Bay. I was already nervous about Matt LaFleur going to Green Bay because I didn't think his offense was that impressive with the Titans in the 1 year where he was calling plays. I know we live in an NFL era where if you have any connection to Sean McVay at all, everybody is ecstatic and they run out and they hire you because everybody's trying to find the next Sean McVay. What I have found is it's hard to find someone else who is great that's connected to another person who's great. And what I mean by that is most of the coaches that have come out of the Bill Belichick coaching tree have failed. Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels, Charlie Weiss, pretty much Bill O'Brien is the most successful so far. So far, Matt Patricia doesn't look very good. All of these guys that people hoped were going to be the next Bill Belichick have typically not materialized. And that is because Belichick's coaching talent is incredibly rare. There aren't very many Bill Belichicks. So why would you assume or believe that you're suddenly going to find the next Bill Belichick by going out and hiring somebody who is connected to him who happens to be on his staff. I think that's going to fail. I also think that's going to fail with Sean McVay, because what it assumes is that coaching talent moves via osmosis, that genius can be taught as opposed to talent being rare. I happen to believe that talent is rare. Your odds of finding the next great Bill Belichick, also coaching with Bill Belichick, relatively low. So I don't buy into Matt LaFleur, but I'd be incredibly troubled by the details that came out of this Aaron Rodgers report, okay? Couple of things that I thought are fascinating. Matt LaFleur still hasn't spoken or met with Aaron Rodgers since he was named the coach, and the team didn't let Aaron Rodgers know in advance who they were going to be able to hire. And so I think Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to have issues with his coaching staff, primarily because Aaron Rodgers thinks he is smarter than his coaches. May well be true, but if they're not going to let Aaron Rodgers actually be coach and quarterback, then they are in potentially a difficult situation in Green Bay. I also think Aaron Rodgers is not going to age gracefully like Drew Brees, like Tom Brady, like those guys have, even a little bit like Peyton Manning. I think it's likely that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a bit of a disaster for the Packers down the stretch here. I'd encourage you to go read that story. I thought it made Aaron Rodgers look worse than it made Mike McCarthy look. I think Mike McCarthy might well be an overrated story, an overrated coach, and an overrated genius when it comes to offensive football. But I think Aaron Rodgers, based on this story, does not seem like a guy that you would want to be on a team with, does not seem like the kind of guy who would lead a team. And I think without a lot of talent around him, those early Packer teams, because of Ted Thompson, the GM, were stacked with talent. I think without all that talent around him, we are likely to continue to see bigger issues going forward. And I think it's unlikely. Again, I think it is unlikely that we are going to end up with a really good ending to the Aaron Rodgers era. So we'll see what exactly ends up happening. It's a great read. I would encourage you to go make sure you read it. Here's a detail that I think is overwhelming, and I've been on it for a while. Aaron Rodgers returned all of the presents that his mom and dad sent to him for Christmas several years ago unopened, regardless of what kind of relationship you have with your parents. Can you imagine returning Christmas presents that your mom bought to your mom in the absence of an absolutely awful childhood? Can you imagine cutting your parents off? Can you imagine not going to your grandfather's funeral? Can you imagine forcing your dad to buy tickets to your games on StubHub? That's what Aaron Rodgers has done. I don't trust it. I think that Aaron Rodgers has major issues with grudges, and this is my advice to everybody out there. Grudge and resentment doesn't harm the person you're grudging or resentful against as much as it corrodes you on the inside. Maybe it's just me. I don't hold grudges. I'm like a defensive back. The minute something happens, I let it go, and I line up the next play and think I'm going to dominate. I just don't have time to hold grudges against anybody. And I don't. Any time that I allow someone else for me to focus on them as opposed to just doing what I do best is time that just eats away at my ability to succeed in my own life. That doesn't make sense to hold grudges. Release them. Be done with them. The fact that Aaron Rodgers is unable to do that, I think, might have made him good for a while, but it's also going to be ultimately his downfall. I think Aaron Rodgers on the backside of his career, this story is must read if you are an NFL fan. All right, Vandy has hired Jerry Stackhouse as their next coach. I don't believe this is going to end up being a good hire, but it is an incredibly risky hire. I think of every decision that I make, and sometimes I make bad decisions. Trust me, I have made my share of really bad decisions in life. But when you take a risk, I think you have to look at best case scenario, worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is pretty clear when you hire a coach. He's going to stink and you're going to end up firing him. But what's the best case scenario? That'll help you balance the risk. I don't know what in the world the best case scenario is for Jerry Stackhouse because he's never really had a best case scenario in the history of college basketball. He's had no college basketball job. He has no connection to Vanderbilt. He has no connection to the city of Nashville. This isn't Penny Hardaway, who you give the keys to at Memphis because he's the most famous basketball player in the city and because he has access to all the best players. This seems to me to be an incredibly risky hire without a substantial payoff. Jerry Stackhouse may be a great guy. He may come to Vanderbilt and be incredibly successful. but this has abject disaster written all over it to me. Okay? First of all, you look at best case, worst case scenarios. We're about to have the NFL draft. You project high end, you project low end. Who's the best case scenario for Jerry Stackhouse? You can't go out and hire a guy like Jerry Stackhouse and expect that he's going to suddenly come into college and be amazing immediately, especially when there's no precedent for success here. There is nobody who has come from the G League. There's almost nobody who has come into the college basketball ranks from the NBA without college experience and been incredibly successful. Okay? There just isn't. So if you are Vanderbilt's AD, Malcolm Turner, a guy I met recently and we had a good conversation. If you are Malcolm Turner, who are you pointing to and saying this is going to be a guy that is going to win at a high level? Malcolm Turner has never spent any time in the SEC to begin with. Put simply, he has no idea what it takes to win in the SEC. He has no experience with that. So why would you assume, if you're Malcolm Turner, that you are suddenly going to come in and be able to hire a guy who wins at a high level in the SEC when you yourself have been on the job for 2 months and have absolutely no idea what is required to win at a high level in the SEC? I'm just very, very doubtful that he is going to come in and do it at a big level. I'm going to block this guy because he's not very smart, and I try to block dumb people when I see dumb people. Here is the other thing. It is a major deal to come into college basketball and have no clue what you are doing, right? And that is effectively what Vanderbilt has done. People say, well, he's going to have great players, okay? Bryce Drew had great players. Bryce Drew had phenomenal players. And he didn't win a game in the SEC, and he got fired because those phenomenal players didn't pan out. Bryce Drew came in and went to the went to the NCAA tournament his first year. And so everybody out there who is making dumb arguments and saying, well, he's going to be able to connect with players. He's going to be having good players. Good players is not Vanderbilt's problem. Vanderbilt's going to have potentially 2 lottery picks and at least 1 lottery pick, it appears, off of this year's team. Bryce Drew recruited at a level that Vanderbilt has never recruited at before. Avery Johnson, as somebody just said. Avery Johnson recruited at an incredibly high level at Alabama. It didn't work because Avery Johnson wasn't prepared to be a college coach. Whatever he was doing was not translating. And in the SEC, where I think the quality of overall player is skyrocketing, the quality of overall player is skyrocketing as well as the quality of overall coach. I think Vanderbilt is in a really dangerous situation here. Whether you love or hate him, Coach Cal's been incredibly successful. Rick Barnes has been incredibly successful over the years. Frank Martin has been more successful than any South Carolina coach in modern history. We'll see what LSU does, but Will Wade's been insanely successful. Buzz Williams, the new coach at A&M, has been successful. It looks like Arkansas may well go and hire Eric Musselman, who's been very successful. And by the way, didn't come straight from the NBA, spent 3 or 4 years as an assistant coach in college before he started to do it. Everybody, you got down at Mississippi State, you got a coach who went to the Final Four multiple times with UCLA. Ole Miss and Kermit Davis had a great first year. This is the best coach. Tom Crean is at Georgia, and he's been fairly successful over the years. Mike White's already been to the Elite Eight. This is as good of a talent at coaching as the SEC has ever had. So Jerry Stackhouse is entering into a league at its absolute apex in terms of coaching. He has no connection to Vanderbilt. He has no connection to the SEC. He has no connection to the city of Nashville, which is why this is nothing like Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway makes a lot of sense to me in taking a risk on the most famous Memphis basketball player maybe of all time. If you look at Vandy hiring, Vandy has been to 8 of the last 16 NCAA tournaments. That's pretty good, all right? 5 of their last 6 coaches have been to the NCAA tournament as head coaches before taking over at Vanderbilt. The only one that hadn't was Jan Van Bredikoff, who was a head coach of Cornell and was one of the best Vanderbilt basketball players of all time. This, to me, seems to be a very, very risky hire. I am not very excited if I am a Vanderbilt fan right now. People say, well, you can't do any worse. I disagree completely. Yes, Vanderbilt was bad this year, but coming into this season, the expectation was that Bryce Drew was going to have a hell of a year. And if Darius Garland doesn't get hurt, this team is at worst a 500 team and probably contending for the NCAA tournament. I really believe that. He was their point guard. He was the engine to their offense. I think right now, Vanderbilt is a top half job in the SEC. I think there are a lot of people who would want it. Giving Jerry Stackhouse a 6-year contract, to me, is wild. And bringing him in general is an insane risk taken by an athletic director that I think is still getting his feet set at Vanderbilt and doesn't really know exactly what's going on. Now, I will say this, to Vanderbilt's credit. Vanderbilt, in a conference that has been renowned for racism over the years, is the first school to have a black AD, a black head coach for football, and a black head coach for basketball. That's to be commendable when you look at the history of black athletes at SEC schools. Congratulations to Vanderbilt. Here's the truth. We're in an era where I don't think fans in the SEC care about race at all. All they care about is wins. Doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what sex you are. This team cares about this fan base. Every one of them cares about winning. And if you win, nothing else matters. And to me, this is a great test for how Vanderbilt's going to do, because people always say, oh, well, there's not full opportunity being given. I think you can point to Jerry Stackhouse and say, I don't know how many other people would have hired Jerry Stackhouse for an SEC job. I'm not sure there is a single SEC school otherwise that would have hired Jerry Stackhouse. I want to see what the contract terms are here, but giving him a 6-year deal seems really risky to me. We'll see whether or not this is going to translate, but put me down as highly skeptical right now. Okay? I don't think anybody else would have hired him. I'm not sure how many other of the top 50 programs in college basketball would hire him. So I hope Vanderbilt got him cheap, and I hope they didn't restrict themselves too aggressively here. All right, this is a wild story. Craig Carton, who was making a couple of $1 million to work at WFAN up in New York, just got sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. And I can't believe this. When I saw it, I was like, there's no way this is real life. When he was sentenced, I swear to God, the judge at his sentencing said, Colleen from New York, first time, long time, and then she sentenced him to 3.5 years in prison. If you're not familiar with Sports Talk Radio, it's common for callers to say first time, long time in advance. For her to say first time, long time, and then sentence him to 42 months in prison, one of the most disrespectful sentencings I've ever heard of before. I hope I'm never sitting in front of a judge being sentenced to jail. But if she starts off with first time, long time, or he does, I'm going to put my head down because I know I'm in trouble then. Craig Carton going to prison for 3.5 years. I hope he gets out before that, and I hope he gets to come back to radio. He was a really talented guy. He will remain a really talented guy. But when your judge says first time, long time, and says her name, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm like, man, that is harsh. A little bit funny, but very harsh from a judge who's sentencing a guy to 42 months in prison. By the way, let me say this. I think we sentence people to prison way too often in this country. This is what I've been saying about the federal basketball investigation, FBI, and the DAs involved in this case. Unless you are a danger to others, that is, you are committing physically violent acts, or you have gone out and you have taken away so much money from others that it's like Bernie Madoff level, I don't think you should go to prison. I don't think it's healthy to put dads and moms in prison and take them away from their families. I don't think that's helpful to society. I don't think it sends the right message. I don't think putting a guy like Craig Carton in jail for 3.5 or 4 years or whatever it is, just like I don't think we should be putting the Adidas execs in jail, just like I don't think we should be putting people in jail for low-level drug offenses, all that stuff. To me, this is absolutely wild in general. We need to be putting people in prison less time, allow them to make money. If Craig Carton was out, he could make $1 million a year doing radio, pay taxes on it, be a helpful member of society while he tries to get himself back in working order. I understand the purpose of consequences. I think they should be financial more so than restricting movement, putting people in jail, taking them away from their families. That's my position in general. Finally, as we head into the weekend, I turn 40 years old tomorrow. I will be a man. I will be 40 tomorrow. And I just want to say to all of you out there who've been watching Outkick the Coverage, who've been reading this site since I started it in 2011, 8 years ago, who've been watching the Periscope, the Facebook, the YouTube, listening on audio, listening on the radio show in the morning, watching Lock It In on television, everybody out there who has been working and helping to spread the word about what I do. I just want to say thank you. 10 years ago, I was turning 30. That's how math works. A decade ago, I was turning 30. I had 2 young kids. I had no job. I was not working at Deadspin anymore. I was working on my second book, and I had legitimate questions about whether or not I was ever going to be able to make a living in the realm of sports, despite the fact that I worked my ass off for 5 straight years. And 10 years ago, I was very nervous about turning 30, and on my 30th birthday, I got hired by Fan House to write articles for $25,000 a year. If you have ever been a parent of 2 young children, if you have ever been unemployed, if you have ever had a dream and been fighting as hard as you can for what you're doing, you probably will face significant difficulties along the way. A decade ago, I was just signing on my 30th birthday to make $25,000 a year. Now, I make several million dollars a year. In a decade's time, I have gone from, am I ever going to be able to make a living doing what I do, to becoming rich doing what I do. How did that happen? By sticking to my guns and continuing to work hard, and by you guys helping to spread the word about what I do, okay? I love every day of what I do. I don't necessarily like when my alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning, but I like talking to you guys on the radio for 3 hours every morning. I love doing an hour of television. I love and still do every day just about Facebook and Periscope with you guys. My point here is, no matter what you do for a living, you are going to deal with substantial challenges. 10 years ago, I questioned whether or not I was going to have a career to be able to do what I do. 10 years later, I couldn't feel more comfortable turning 40. At 30, I had no idea what the next decade of my life would be. A lot of you are younger, some of you are older, but all of you will be going through incredible difficulties in your life. If you remember how bad the recession was back in 2008, back in 2009, it was a challenging time for many people, myself included. I know a lot of you have kids, a lot of you have difficulties in your families, a lot of you have difficulties in your life. The DBAP mantra is really about not allowing negativity to take over your thought process and not being afraid to take risks. I left the practice of law 15 years ago, and a lot of people said I was crazy, that I had no idea what I was doing. How could I leave the practice of law to go into something where I had no guaranteed contract or I wasn't making very much money? And the answer was, ultimately, I believed in myself. And so much of the DBAP mantra, don't be a pussy, is about trusting yourself. There are tons of people on the internet, people in your life every single day who are going to tell you that you cannot do something. You cannot rely on anyone external to be the driving force of your life. Believe in yourself and don't be afraid to take chances. It's great to have people who support you. And I thank all of you who supported me when I was struggling, when I was trying to grow what I do. And I still thank you so much for supporting me now. But the most important thing in life, is believing in yourself when others don't. And if you look to social media in this day and age for validation, for affirmation, for the belief that you can succeed, you're probably not going to find it very many places. Because most of social media is predicated on trying to make you feel worse about yourself, on looking at somebody else who's got a better car, on looking at somebody else who got into a better college, on looking at somebody else who's got something that you don't have. And my advice to all of you, as now I am a man and I am 40, don't look around you. Be concerned about yourself. You will create or you will cause all of your successes and all of your failures. It's easy to find a reason to not be successful. But if you look externally and look for reasons, you will fail. All of your success has to be internal. You have to believe in yourself. No one else will. And you can't allow people who are critics, who will tear you down, to suck away the energy, the drive, the affirmation that you yourself, have. I'm telling you, I did it. You can do it as well. Don't let the haters win. Be internal and believe in yourself and the power of an individual life. All right, that's my advice for you. I'm going to write a big piece about turning 40 and how much different I feel than when I turned 30. I think the older you get, the more comfortable you're going to get in your own skin. I'm trying to impart a little bit of advice here to you early. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP, boys and girls, unless you need to SBAP. We'll be back later on, maybe this weekend with the Final Four reaction. But regardless, certainly on Monday. I love all of you. Have great weekends. Thanks for all the support you've shown me. And kisses from you to me. Have great weekends. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. This has been Outkick the Show. The last show I will ever do without being 40 years old. I'll see you guys. Bye. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See y'all.